According to reports late last night, Dominic Solanke has done his medial cruciate ligament in his knee and will miss the Liverpool second leg, the Aston Villa FA Cup tie, and of course, our last two Europa League group matches, not to mention all of the league games until early March. And that is a best case scenario. Basically, we're doomed. Probably. Richarlison, now is your time, my friend. Meanwhile, we're rumoured to be looking to bring in an exciting 20-year-old Argentinian international forward who has graced the Premier League this season, and I'll discuss who is going to win the race for Lecce's Patrick Dorgu. All this and more on today's episode of Daily Premier League Transfer News with me, Barnaby Slater. Guys, thank you so much for watching and for listening. If you're on YouTube, please do give this video a like. Also, if you're not a subscriber to my channel, I'm getting closer to 15,000 subscribers. I bring you daily Premier League transfer news in January and in the summer, always starting, of course, with my team, Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, the team who are currently in the mud. So I'm trying to build this community, getting close to 15,000. So please do press that subscribe button. Anyway, let's get started. And I'll start with the Don, the transfer Don, the ITK of all ITKs, Fabrizio Romano. He talked about Spurs looking for a forward yesterday. He said this: for sure, it has to be one forward at least because they need a player in that position. So they're working on the opportunities. At the moment, still nothing concrete in public, but also in this case, I'm sure in private, they're working on it. And as soon as possible, we will keep you posted. I think the reason he talks about public versus private is because of what's happened under Johan Lange so far. Tottenham have really sprung surprises when they've come in with their transfers. A lot of the leaks that we hear haven't really come to fruition, whereas then something out of the blue comes in at the last minute. So that's why the Don, Fabrizio Romano, is talking about that. He went on to say this: they're working on it. Tottenham need players. The idea remains to bring in at least 2 players between now and the end of the window. I mean, I've never crossed my fingers tighter. I'm crossing everything, guys, because I think 2 is the very least we need. And yeah, especially with that news coming in late last night, which I'll talk more about later in the episode. And of course, Pape Matar as well yesterday went down injured. We've got the game tonight against Hoffenheim away. I think I make it, we've got about, 9 senior first team players available. I can't talk about the injuries anymore. I can't really discuss after the videos I've made this week, talking yesterday about the Ange Postecoglou's fitness coach at Celtic, who discussed why there are so many injuries and my thoughts on the fact that the injury crisis is absolutely ruining Ange Postecoglou's chances of having a good Tottenham Hotspur career, and that he can't, in my opinion, he can't blame it all on anyone other than himself to some degree. Yes, there's some luck involved, but also clearly there can be no coincidence. Anyway, I'll stick with the transfers for now. Tottenham are interested in Brighton's Facundo Buonanotte, who is on loan at Leicester. 20 years old, he can play 10 or wide forwards, which is obviously good for Spurs, looking for utility players at the moment, players who can play across a number of positions. He's got 5 goals and 3 assists so far this season for Leicester, which is incredible considering how bad Leicester have been. Rest in peace, Tottenham Hotspur, who play Leicester this weekend. And it's widely reported over recent months that Spurs have continued to express an interest in the diminutive playmaker. However, he does look like a good player. I like him. But I've mentioned this week, again, how I think Tottenham need to add some physicality to their squad as well as ball-playing ability. We need players who can do both. And Buonanotte is another small player, and I'll be talking about another rumoured transfer interest that Tottenham are going for either this January or in the summer, who again is a very small player. And for me, I don't know, let me know what you think in the comments, but when we line up to defend set pieces, I just feel like we are always dwarfed by the opposition. And we're not great at defending set pieces as it is, but it not only gives the opposition a better chance kind of physically, but also I think it must kind of lift them mentally to just be like, oh, every time we get a set piece, we should just put this in the box and put them under loads of pressure. And I also just think not just on the set piece front, also physicality wise, when the going gets tough for Tottenham, the opposition teams often just get in our face and kind of knock us over and really physically dominate us. I can particularly think of those games like Crystal Palace away, and we just really flatter to deceive in those scenarios. And that's why I just think we need to add a bit more physicality, especially down the spine of the team. But let me know what you think. Tottenham have been made aware of the £27.4 million plus bonuses bid by Manchester United for Patrick Dorgu at Lecce, the player who has been on Spurs' list since last summer and before, and Tottenham haven't pulled the trigger on. They haven't felt like the deal is a good one to be done. Lecce rejected that £27 million bid from Manchester United. They want £35 million in total. Tottenham hoped that they could go back for Dorgu in the summer. Of course they did, hoping that they could get the money down, probably. But Dorgu has verbally given his word to Napoli that he'll join them in the summer if he doesn't leave before. That's according to Italian media. Tottenham now apparently considering a fresh offer to Lecce for Dorgu. Now, this is the perfect example of the spot that Tottenham Hotspur are in right now. Their refusal to pay top dollar or to pay anywhere above their own valuation for players means that other clubs swoop in and get the first bids in. And often they will go to those clubs, especially because those clubs like Manchester United will pay more wages as well. Tottenham need to pull the trigger earlier on players, and Dorgu hasn't left Lecce yet. And if Ange Postecoglou is still rated highly enough by Daniel Levy where his opinion counts, then Postecoglou needs to go to Levy and say, listen, if we do not get a replacement left back for Destiny Udogie while he's out injured, then Jed Spence will have to continue to play there, and then Pedro Porro will never get a break until Van de Ven and Romero are back fit, and then maybe Archie Gray can play right back, but he's not a right back. So, you know, we're basically building, you know, I've said a lot about how I think Ange has to take some responsibility for the injuries, right? But also, we are building, you know, our own trouble, aren't we? By refusing to give him the squad he needs. And that is something that fitness coach said yesterday, isn't it? In that interview yesterday. He needs a better and a stronger squad. And if Tottenham are unwilling to pay the money that it takes, but at the same time, every single time the revenues and the financial accounts come out from Spurs, it shows how high our revenue is. And today it came out that Tottenham have an incredibly low salary to revenue number. It's somewhere like in the kind of 25%, whereas like Aston Villa have 98% their salary compared to their revenue. So it shows how unwilling Levy is currently to spend money on wages. It's completely ridiculous. And the only excuse I can give for it is that we haven't had Champions League football for a while. But still, that lower number compared to other clubs in the Premier League like Aston Villa, it is no wonder that Villa have jumped ahead of us, because they are speculating to accumulate, and Tottenham are not doing that at this time. Moving on, Sky Sports said yesterday that Southampton will not entertain bids of less than £55 million for their exciting young forward Tyler Dibbling. It came out a couple of days ago that Tottenham were interested in Dibbling. He is a good, young, aggressive, quite physical winger. I really like the look of him. He fits the transfer strategy of players who are very, very exciting for the future and ideally have some minutes under their belt even at a young age now. But also reports that he's injured at the moment, so it doesn't look very likely that Spurs will pull the trigger on that one. A report coming out of West Ham yesterday saying that in terms of the Tottenham target Angel Gomez, West Ham are a million miles away from completing a deal for the Lille and England midfielder, despite some reports suggesting otherwise. Talks have been held, but West Ham nowhere near agreeing terms, and Tottenham are still in the race, having offered him a pre-contract agreement because his contract runs out in the summer. He is the other player I was talking about who I think is, you know, obviously a very good footballer, good on the ball, number 6, likes playing in that role, ex-Manchester United. He's really found his legs at Lille, but he's so small. He's so unbelievably small, and the Premier League is a different beast to international football or to Ligue 1. And I just fear if Tottenham continue to bring only small players in. Do you remember when Arsene Wenger kind of started phasing out the famed back four of Arsenal of Dixon, Adams, Keown, Bold and Winterburn, and also phased out like Vieira and Petit in the spine? And he was looking over at Barcelona, I think, and what they were doing under Pep and the tiki-taka, and he's like, well, we can do that. And he phased out all of the big guys and just brought in the little guys like Alexander Hleb, Arshavin. He had Fabregas in the midfield. And Arsenal lacked a physicality they needed to win the Premier League like they had done before. And the Premier League, I think, always bites. And you need physicality down your spine. And I think, and I hope that Postecoglou knows that. And I hope that the club realise that. Because just having two relatively big centre-backs, obviously Van de Ven is huge, but Romero is not even that big himself. Bentancur is kind of a big guy, but we need ball players who can play Ange ball, play the style of football going forward, but who also have the physicality to match. That is my opinion. Let me know what you think in the comments. As I mentioned in the opening, came out last night that Spurs forward Dominic Solanke has suffered a further setback after sustaining a medial cruciate ligament injury and is now not expected to return until early March. That is absolutely devastating news. Richarlison only just back from a long injury. I'm sure he's not ready to play 90 minutes. Son Heung-min has shown us time and time again this season that the number 9 role does not fit him in the Premier League. The ball just bounces off him when he's trying to hold it up most of the time. He's a great player, great finish. He's not in great form, but he is not a number 9 in the Premier League in my opinion. And that is why Tottenham need, in this last, week and a day of the transfer window, they need to bring a forward who can hold the ball up. Pape Matar Sarr also had to pull out of training yesterday. The extent of the issue is unknown. Rodrigo Bentancur is back, but Sarr will definitely miss tonight's match, as per Ange Postecoglou's press conference last night. He said that Sarr was just a little bit sore and is hopeful that both him and Basuma will return at the weekend against Leicester. Christian Romero, some small good news, did take part in training before their trip to Hoffenheim yesterday. Postecoglou said in his press conference it's far too soon for him to come back. He's thinking about another week or 10 days for Romero. He said he's training, yes, but he's not travelled, he's not playing. It's probably another week to 10 days. The plan and hope is for Mickey van der Ven to resume full training from next week. So you'd think it would be another kind of week or 10 days for Van der Ven after that. So you're looking really for Van der Ven maybe making his return in that Liverpool semi-final second leg. So yes, that would be good if we had Van der Ven and Romero available for that. But again, with the way that we brought them back against Chelsea in such a high-profile game where, you really need to test your muscles, that is a bit of a worry for me. Ali Gold did a great interview with Pedro Porro yesterday, so I'll bring you some of the quotes about that. Pedro Porro has been receiving quite a lot of stick recently for his form, but he is just absolutely... he's knackered, isn't he? He's knackered. He's had to play every single game up and down the sides, playing inverted, no break whatsoever for him. And Ali Gold asked him about how he feels being one of the Spurs players with the most minutes played. He said, it's okay because I work with the physio in the gym. The people outside don't understand this situation. They say, Pedro, you have to rest. You haven't rested. For me and Decky, who have played lots of minutes this season, this is normal. This is football. Too many games, but I'm ready. If the gaffer asks, are you ready? I say, yeah, no problem. Everything for the team, for the fans, and for the club. It's the most important thing for me. I love that he said that, Pedro. I feel like he has to say it. Of course he does. But often players don't know when to say no. They want to play every game. They don't know when to say, actually, my body isn't ready. And Kulusevski and Porro right now, I think, totally in the red zone. And my big fear is they are the next two to get injured. And the inevitability probably is that they'll get injured in the next couple of games before that Liverpool semi-final and will lose. Probably Kulusevski, because he's now, after I said the one player we can't afford to lose is Vicario, we lost him. Then after that, the one player we can't afford to lose is Solanke. We've lost him. Well, the one we can't afford to lose now is Kulusevski for sure. And Porro as well, just behind. So probably inevitable, I'd say. Muscular injury coming next for them. Porro was asked about how he feels about Jed Spence's improvement this season. He said, he's doing a spectacular job for us at the moment. Not just now, but before. I've always looked at him as being a real talent. It's not just because he plays in my position. You can see from the way he is, the man he is. When he was away from the club, he kept working hard, kept his ideas clear, just so that when he had that opportunity, he would be prepared for it. I just say to him now to keep going as you are, and you will keep being important for the team. Yep, Jed Spence has been a revelation this season. I'd love to see him at right back so that Pedro Porro can get some rest, but that is unlikely to happen anytime soon, as I mentioned earlier in this video. But I agree with Pedro Porro, and good to hear him speaking well of Jed Spence, who it strikes me Jed Spence is probably a player who acts kind of on and off the pitch like he doesn't need an arm around the shoulder, acts like he's, a big man who can deal with everything on his own, but probably does just need that little bit of fatherly touch, a little arm around the shoulder saying, you're doing great, you're a real talent, keep going. And he'll probably kind of shake it off as if it means nothing, but inside, in his body, it probably means everything to him. That's how he strikes me from the outside. Kind of, look, I don't know a lot about Jed Spence's upbringing or whatever, but it strikes me like he probably is quite a hard guy on the outside, hard shell, hard exterior, but probably could do with a little bit of, like I said, a bit more carrot than stick. in terms of his treatment from peers and managers, etc. Porro was asked about Bergvall and Archie Gray, said this: Lucas and Archie have been doing so well, but that at the end of the day is why the club have brought them in. They've had their opportunity and it's up to them to take it. They're doing a great job for the club, and if we go through a bad moment and they're suffering like us all at this moment, then that'll make them great players in the future because they're putting everything out there for the team. And then finally, Pedro Porro just said this: the gaffer and the team are together, and this is important. And that's, I think, a vital thing to talk about, really, because I've discussed, haven't I, how that first half against Everton last weekend was the first time this season where I've thought the players kind of down tools a little bit. I've talked a little bit about James Maddison this week. I have heard reports from some of the reputable journalists that I listen to on the podcast that there are some players around the squad who are angry about their lack of playing time, and my guess is that is James Maddison. But Porro coming out and saying that the gaffer and the team are together, and that's important, kind of adds on to what Christian Romero said earlier this season, is that he's right behind Ange Postecoglou and that he would want to leave the club if they got rid of Ange Postecoglou. So it does feel like, certainly in terms of Porro and previously Romero, that there is still a lot of love for the manager. But as I've said numerous times, if Postecoglou cannot get his first team on the pitch, what chances does he have? And these continual injuries, Psar again yesterday, Solanke is an unlucky one, but clearly he was in the red zone, being overworked, he's overtired. And then once again, I will add that Daniel Levy needs to take his massive responsibility for this as well, in terms of us not having the squad. However, I just want to add one thing, just playing devil's advocate a little bit on the squad thing. Let's not forget, guys, and tell me if you're different, if you weren't like this in the comments, but let's not forget, at the end of last season, in the preseason, we all made a list. I certainly made a list and talked about it on videos. We all made a list of the players that we thought Tottenham had to get rid of who couldn't play the Ange Postecoglou style. Who couldn't do it. The likes of Højbjerg, the likes of Dyer, the likes of Emerson Royal. We wanted them out of the club. So I think it's important that we don't kind of reassess things now that we've got this injury crisis and be like, oh, well, what we could have done with is some more of those players still in the club. It's not easy to get rid of, 10, 11, 12 players like Spurs have had to over the last year or so. It's not easy to get them out of the club. Spurs really struggle to do that. And so it's equally not as easy to then just replace them with 10 or 11 players who then do fit the style. Everybody knows, if you look at the likes of Guardiola, you look at the likes of Klopp, all the managers who've had a bit of time, most of them, it's taken kind of 4, 5, 6 windows to replace the players they haven't wanted with the players who do fit the style. So I don't think it's quite as simple as, Postecoglou was left high and dry and didn't get enough players in. It's just not quite as simple as that. It's a lot more nuanced. I'm not defending Daniel Levy or Scott Munn or Johan Lange. What I'm saying is it does take time. It takes transfer windows, and especially the January one is obviously difficult. We're really struggling at this point to get the players through, and now other clubs are sniffing around the same kind of players because they're in desperation world as well, in terms of Manchester United, in terms of kind of all positions, and Arsenal in the forward positions, just using 2 as an example. So that is another reason probably to realistically stick with Postecoglou. He hasn't got the squad. He hasn't got the players available for his first team because of injuries. But where do we draw the line? I'll ask that question again. Where do we draw the line? If he loses tonight, if he loses against Leicester, can he keep his job? I do not know. Let me know what you think in the comments. Okay, guys, before I get into some other Premier League transfer news, once again, if you haven't already, please do press like on this video. I really appreciate it. And if you're not a subscriber to my channel, please do press that subscribe button. Daily Premier League transfer news, always starting with my team, Tottenham. And I would love it if you could become a member of my channel. Just £1 a month, guys. £1 a month, so £12 a year. And it really helps me make this daily content for you. All details of how are in the description box below. Okay, so let's start at that desperation club, Manchester United. And they will sign a new left wing back, no doubts about it. As I mentioned, Patrick Dorgu is on the list. Lecce want £30 million, £34 million in fact. And then Alvaro Carreras is another option with a £15 million buyback clause that Manchester United are looking at. Over to Chelsea. Fabrizio Romano says that after Manchester City asked about Douglas Luiz from Juventus, Chelsea have also asked about him. Juventus have no intention to open the door for a loan move. Negotiations not advancing at the moment, but Chelsea are interested. Ben Chilwell of Chelsea, now 28 years old. He's a left back. Obviously, Maresca said about Ben Chilwell he can't play the inverted role. That is, for me, the only reason why Tottenham shouldn't be in for him. if they also feel strongly that he can't play the inverted role, otherwise I would be going to Chelsea and trying to get him in on a loan. But Ben Chilwell is attracting interest from Everton. That's an interesting one there. David Moyes looking to get a left back in. Everton have also spoken to the agent of AC Milan and ex-Spurs player Emerson Royal, as have Fulham spoken about him. The Brazilian defender is also on the radar of Galatasaray. I was shocked that we got £20 million from AC Milan for Emerson Royal, and it looks like now that Kyle Walker has gone to AC Milan, Royal is going to be first out the door. I feel for him. He was a hard worker, but not a good footballer in terms of with the ball at his feet, and that's why I was shocked that he went to Milan, where obviously in Italy you need to be a good footballer, obviously, as well as a good defender. Aston Villa and Newcastle are set to battle it out for 27-year-old England and former Chelsea player Fikayo Tomori. He's at AC Milan. He was one I've talked about in previous videos about being on Tottenham's list, but again, with Villa and Newcastle sniffing about, does that mean Tottenham are no longer going for him? I mean, how many times Tottenham just swimming in waters with other clubs and unwilling to try and beat them to the punch. I do also wonder, just say this now, remember a year ago when we got Dragusin ahead of Bayern Munich, I wonder if Ange Postecoglou's ability to get on the phone to players and persuade them is really dampened by the terrible league form that Tottenham have this season and the injuries. His big prowess, Ange Postecoglou, was the ability to say to a player, listen, you know, we're going to do this with or without you, but we want you a part of the project. And maybe that is not really working anymore. Over at West Ham, they're in talks with OH Leuven for Ezekiel Banzuzi, with Graham Potter understood to be supporting a move for the midfielder. And over to South London, finally, Arsenal made a tentative inquiry for a player who's been on their list for a long time, 21-year-old Leipzig and Slovenia striker Benjamin Sesko. Arsenal looking very hard for a striker. All the pundits saying they need one very badly. Let's hope they don't get one. Okay, guys, thank you so much for watching once again. Please do press that like button. Please do press subscribe, getting closer to 15,000 subscribers. Let's get up there as quickly as possible, guys. Yeah, what are we on? Thursday. Hoffenheim game tonight. I'd do anything for a win, but I don't want to talk about Dr. Tottenham, but Hoffenheim, one of the worst teams, not only in the Bundesliga at the moment, but also in the whole of Europe. And they're very low in the group stage of the Europa League. And frankly, it fills me with the fear of God. Enjoy your Thursday. Cheers.